Jamie Palmer, and over the past, I don't know, couple of months, Kathy and I have been getting together like once a week, once every other week, and we've been having these really amazing conversations. And so we just thought we'd record them and share them with you because A, we want you to know that you're not alone, but B, we really, and I don't want to speak for Kathy, but I know for me, I want to be able to create a space where people feel comfortable to have these conversations and engage in a conversation and really just be able to have a dialogue about what is going on because it's heavy.
Yep. Hi, I'm Kathy Jalali, and ditto on what Jamie said. It's been really great to just have these conversations, and really the way the direction of the conversation has been just really interesting. And I think what we've noticed is after that, half an hour or 45 minutes that we talk, we realize that a lot of things that are happening is common, and sometimes not really discussed as much. And just knowing that other people are going through it, and possibly just having a space where we can sort of bounce off of each other and maybe just have a different perspective in maybe dealing with what's happening. There's just so much going on. It can, just little things can be so helpful. So again, we were having these great conversations, and we decided that, let's just record them. And I'm sure there are others that are going through the same thing, and you never know.
Yeah, you never know. And so we're here and we're chatting. So yeah, we were talking about, I was complaining. I'm like, oh man, I put all this stuff in my Amazon cart for my kids for Christmas. Because I just, for me, I want to make sure that I make it special for them because I'm not sure who they're going to see around the holidays. And I'm like, half the things sold out already or tripled in price. And it's just crazy, like just everything that's going on. And then I'm going on and on and on about this first world problem. And Kathy's like, oh yeah, my parents have to evacuate in California because of the fires. And I'm like, oh my goodness, why are you letting me drone on?
and everything we're going through is legitimate. I mean, it's all relative. It depends. I mean, before I found out that they were doing that, I was unhappy with what things were going on during the day. So it's just like one thing after another. And I think just realizing that at any moment what we're feeling, it's real, and acknowledging it, and just seeing it through the whole picture is really important. Sometimes we feel that what we're feeling is probably not significant enough. But then again, sort of feeling that for too long can also have its own sort of feeling. So everything it's just too much going on. And again, you opened up the conversation about kids and how to sort of handle this whole thing around what how kids are feeling right now. And I think you're right. It's such a we want them to be able to have their lives to go on in a normal fashion, and at the same time we realize that this is a time that they also need to understand that life is just not the way it was. But how do you navigate that?
Oh my God,
depending on their age, depending on family dynamic, it's just so different for different people. And I think, we're struggling with that too. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I see, like, for the most part, everything is going okay. We're doing virtual learning, but there are days that just, I'm not where I need to be, or they're not. And there's just this, just these waves and these highs and lows. And I think it's more challenging when all of us are having these lows together. That's the hard part, because, usually there's somebody who's at the high and can sort of pull the rest up. But the challenge is And again, Jamie and I were saying we feel like the last month things have just been, I don't know if just we're feeling it. I feel it from, other people that I talk to. Just last month has been difficult. It's just a combination of a lot of different factors and just, this pandemic fatigue, uncertainty, and it's just happening more frequently. And the lows are starting to sort of creep in a little bit more often.
Yeah, I'd agree 100%. I mean, yes, I feel like every Monday it's like a day. Like, and I don't know if it's the transition for me and the kids back into like school and whatever, but oh man, every Monday is a day. And I like totally lost my patience yesterday. And I'm not typically one to lose my patience, but it's interesting because what I'm finding is interesting is my 3.5-year-old is becoming increasingly more demanding. And I'm like, this is weird because this is not typical of his behavior. Like he's usually pretty laid back and then he'll get an idea in his head and he'll demand it. But now it's like, meh, like this is what I want and blah, blah, blah. And so I was so frustrated with him because I was like trying to find this Lego piece that's like, I don't know, it was like a Link Lego piece that he built. Well, he can't describe to me what this Lego piece looks like. So I was like so frustrated with him yesterday. And then of course it like trickles into all the other things that you do, even if you don't mean it to. And it's just ends up being like, you know what? I just want to throw in the towel at 4:00, 3:00. I'm like, all right, putting on my pajamas and going to bed, like done. And it's not easy. And I'm not a person, like I've always been an early riser. Like I like to get up early and get stuff done. And in the past week or two, it's been like, I have just not had the energy or the bandwidth to get up and to do my morning routine and work out and do all those things that I know help me to feel better and be my best self. But it's just like, I've just been like, nope, I'm tired. Like I want to stay in bed and sleep more. And I think it's just the combination of everything that's going on. And here in Rhode Island, like cases are surging like crazy. We had an all-time high on a Saturday for cases. And granted, we have like a big outbreak going on at one of our colleges, but still you're just like, what am I doing? Like, all right, time to stock up again, I guess. Like I can see where this is going to go. And I don't know. It's sad. It's sad because it's, we basically have to mentally prepare. It's like almost like Game of Thrones. Winter is coming, people.
That's what I've been sort of, that whole line, winter is coming, is so appropriate right now, being a big Game of Thrones fan here. So, but I think you're right. And I think it just trickles down to a lot of different things. And as, as entrepreneurs also, I think it's just having such a huge effect on motivation. And it's really hard. I mean, and I'm really trying to sort of, get focused and sort of stay motivated in what I'm doing. And I'm just finding it more difficult. And, it just takes a lot more energy to get to that space. And then again, once you don't have enough energy, then you can't go on with your regular routine. And that sort of becomes a vicious cycle, right? And then you sort of just go down. Now, although one thing I've noticed, Jamie, that does help a little bit is I think just a mental sort of break of just accepting that, I just can't do this right now. I can't do my I can't get up early and go on with my morning routine. This is just where I am. I'm physically and mentally exhausted, and just giving ourselves the permission in a way, versus just feeling even more frustrated about it sometimes helps. I think guilt is also such a energy consuming feeling. And I think we're just so good at it. We, especially as moms and women, that's kind of like been our signature strategy to keep going, because we're always feeling guilty. We're feeling guilty that Kids are not emotionally where they need to be. We're feeling guilty that they're not getting the social interaction that they need. We're feeling guilty that their school experience is not the same. We're feeling guilty that we're just not providing that happy environment for the rest of the family. And it's just, it's too much. It's really too much. And, not to say that this is, strictly a female versus male thing, but I truly believe that as women, and especially as moms, we just happen to do that more and more frequently. I mean, I just sort of see that. I compare it with, my husband, right? Well, and I think there is another sort of, maybe he has a different, but it's just really interesting how we deal with it.
Agreed. I mean, perfect example. We started recording this thing. My husband is literally downstairs in the dining room. My kids are in the living room, and the kids come up here and will knock on my door versus taking the 10 steps to go ask my husband, who's just sitting downstairs on his lap. He's working, but like, he's not taking a call. He's not whatever. They'll literally do that. And I don't think that, to me, I mean, it's crazy. I think kids just naturally do that anyway. And so therefore that part of the burden just falls on women anyway, because it's just the nature of being a mom. But I think we talked about this last time when we were chatting, that something like 879,000 women left the workforce last month. And I'll get the article so we can cite it. But like, how is that not telling to you that women are at their maxed capacity to handle anything? Like, we're tapped out. We're our bucket, our ability to take on anymore is full.
Yeah. And you're right. As moms, it's just sort of like, it's a somewhat natural that happens. But I often wonder if our responses and the way we've subconsciously been programmed also to respond to these situations has also helped. And of course it has, right?
I'm sure it has.
And what can one do to to sort of, I don't want to say rectify, but sort of help a little bit in this situation? Again, I'm similar example with you. I'm doing my thing, my husband's doing, he's sort of like sitting or maybe watching TV or something. The first point of contact is always mommy, even if I'm like juggling 1,000 different things. But I've also noticed that a lot of times when something happens, my response, like my instinct, is always a little bit more, I don't want to say dramatic, but it's just that the way he responds versus the way I'm like, it's such immediate programmed, like, oh, this is happening, so let me be the fixer. Oh my gosh, you didn't do, okay, let's do that. And I wonder, I mean, is that really serving all of us or not? Probably, you could argue that.
I don't think it is. And I think the other thing that's really crazy to me is that, and like, I love my husband. This is not a dig at my husband.
Exactly. Yeah.
But he'll be sitting watching TV and they'll be like, Dad, and no response, because, he's so tuned out.
Yeah, subconsciously,
and I don't think women we don't operate in that same way.
Oh no, our antennas are like my kids are like walking down the block, they're coming, I can tell, like I recognize their footsteps.
Right, I can tell which kid's coming based on who and you're like, oh, here comes this one. And it's I don't know, for better or for worse, it makes it really, really hard on women with everything that's going on.
Yeah, it does. And I think, it just, physical exhaustion, mental, emotional, and again, having these discussions, knowing that other moms, other women, I mean, really anybody at this point, but, since we're specifically talking about moms, just knowing that, people are going through this, and we're not alone. And I think, we know that we're all in this, but
Yeah.
it talking about it specifically and just hearing other people and see what they're going through, it just, it's like, this is happening to all of us at, different capacities. And, we're all doing what we can. Again, that whole, guilt is such a energy
Leak.
consumer leak. It's like this vampire.
Yeah.
It worry and link and guilt. And of course we do, I think, as a society, specifically as women, we tend to have those two emotions just very frequently. And of course what's happening around the world is just magnified that to like skyrocket it. So how do we go on, and how do we really manage that is the question. And and I think, again, just having that conversation, and maybe like every morning just having like a few minutes and just having that focus to say that, what, I am committed to not feeling guilty about every little thing that's happening in my family. And I'm just gonna just creating that pseudo boundary to some, and not in a sort of a pretentious or in a kind and a compassionate way. I think that's the thing. People, knowing that we can do that compassionately, and it's good for us, and ultimately it's good for everybody else, because that way, when we have that boundary, we can regulate ourselves much better, and then hence everybody else's. But it does take practice, it does take practice. And I think it takes a little bit of patience, which is also another thing that takes a little bit of energy, is, maybe just having that conversation with the kids and say, listen, mommy is just not going to be doing this right now. And explaining a couple of times why we're not doing that. And just being okay with it.
Yeah, I agreed. And I've also found, for me, like, journaling has helped a lot. I've been journaling a lot more, even if it's just for like 3 minutes, to just get out the stuff in my head and get it down on paper. I, for the most part, also completely cut out alcohol, which has made
That's a good one.
Massive difference. And you wouldn't think that it would, right? Like, I don't know. I had a couple of drinks on Saturday night with my parents, and the next day, and I woke up, I was like immediately anxious. I'm like, why am I anxious? Like, I don't even feel like, I just woke up. How can I wake up anxious? And I like thought about it. I'm like, oh man, I had a couple of drinks. I would contend my blood pressure is higher, my resting heart rate's higher, and whatever. So for the most part, that's the first time I've had a drink in 6 or 7 months. And it wasn't really even like a conscious decision. I just like was not into it because I've been so whatever. But I think that's, I think a lot of times we think, oh, let me just have like a glass of wine or whatever, and it'll just help us chill out. But I think in fact, it actually contributes to the feeling of anxiety and dread. I also find, for me, getting outside is massively helpful, even in crappy weather.
Just getting that fresh air.
Yeah. Even going out, like, it's silly because it's kind of getting cold, but like, I love going outside barefoot and just like grounding and feeling the earth. That I find that really, really helps. And then our friend, Stephen Green, who did a virtual learning plan for me back in February, or no, must have been March or April. And he recommended, since everyone in my house is working from home for the most part, a little family meeting every morning. And so we have like a whiteboard downstairs where I map out the kids' schedule. And basically every 30 minutes, we have the schedule on the wall. So the kids kind of know, hey, here's what's going on. But at 7:15, we go through the schedule. And then my husband and I also talk about, okay, well, I have calls at this time. You have calls at this time. Here's how we're going to handle this. Like, let's adjust the kids' schedule to make sure that, they have something to do if we both have calls at the same time, because they're pretty autonomous. They play well together. But that has also been tremendously helpful. I don't want to say in eliminating guilt because I still feel guilty about certain things sometimes. But it's been a good way to get everybody on the same page, because I can then say, and it would probably work well with your girls since they're a little bit older. I can say to my 7-year-old, well, go check the schedule. Like if the schedule says it's X time, that means it's time to do that. And it's helped us to be able to like keep on track. And sure, there's days where we don't follow it to a T and we're like, all right, everybody's having a meltdown. Let's just forget it.
That's actually really good a recommendation. I sort of like to think of these as little anchors, right? Because like we all need these anchors to sort of keep us going throughout the day. And, you know, what you talked about in terms of schedule, that's really helpful. You know, what we do with the girls. So my husband doesn't work from home. It's myself and the kids, but that way we make sure we have, we spend, you know, kind of a nice long breakfast time together. And, you know, I feel like my girls are just going through the stage that they just really like to talk and tell me about every little thing that's going on. And I don't know if it's the hormones or whatever it is. It's just, you know, they just need that. And I think that also helps with my guilt sort of, you know, dealing with that, because I feel like, you know, that's our time. And what's been interesting is sometimes, you know, I get a little sidetracked and, you know, I'm trying to figure out, I was like, oh, I was going to order this online or whatever. And I go over and to get my phone and do, and they don't really like that. They're like, mommy, please don't go to your phone. And so it was a big, because, you know, sometimes we do things subconsciously, right? And so
let me just do this over here while I'm doing whatever.
They do not appreciate that. They've told me. And so we've made it like a sort of a time where, you know, we're all present and we're all just like, you know, goofing around or just like listening and, you know, these, so, you know, I mean, on a positive note, this wouldn't have happened if they were going to school. Now we like sometimes our breakfast time is like about 45 minutes to an hour and we're just sitting there, no TV, no nothing. It's our special time and we're just, you know, hanging out and talking about things. They'll tell me about school and, you know, so that's kind of like our little ritual. And it's been really helpful. So as you said, sometimes, you know, doesn't happen. I have to do things and, you know, we're running around. It's not always nice, but, you know, it's also like the 80-20 rule, right? You know, things don't happen in 100%. Just, you know, 80% of the time, try to stick to it. And hopefully that can, you know, have its own sort of create this momentum for further.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%. I also think too, it's just, I look at, you know, my kids have been home since they've both been home since March 16th. They were both on a planned vacation.
March 16th. They were both on a
planned vacation that week. And my oldest was on a 2-week break because they do a 2-week break instead of doing the February and April. So they do 2 weeks in March. And my youngest was on a one week. And they both they were both going to different schools. And we were supposed to be on vacation, and my husband works for the government and he's a manager. And so when that happened, it was like, he's like, I can't go on vacation. There's just too much going on. And I have people that report to me that are traveling all over the place and we have to figure out how to get them back home. And, for me, I was like, okay, well, let me just move my schedule around and we'll make it work, you know? And I think there's this, at the time, I remember feeling like, oh, wow, like I don't have to drive around 2 hours a week or 2 hours a day. And I don't have to this and I don't have to that. And I really try to go back and anchor myself into those feelings of gratitude for having the kids home so much, because I think we're at the point where I'm not taking it for granted. Like I take it, I'm like, whatever, they're home. So I try to go back to that feeling. And I was doing a really good job at writing like these captain's log things at the time. So I've gone back and I read a bunch of them that I had written. And, you know, I was just so grateful for having all this extra time for them. And, you know, I made so many good memories with them that I would have never, ever gotten to make. And then I look at like, we opted to homeschool this year instead of sending my son to private school. And then because of the two kids had two totally different rules for school. And so I was just like, I can't possibly manage this. This is like a full-time job to manage the kids' school if they were to go back. And so we opted to homeschool. And, you know, I got to be honest, the way in which like for me, I don't feel as though I could ever in good, I don't know, good ethics, good faith, send them back and be like, yeah, you have to go sit in school for 8 hours a day and learn, when I look at the curriculum and what it is that they need to accomplish in a day for school. And I realize there's like a socialization aspect that comes with school or whatever, but I'm like, there's just so many things that I feel like have changed for the better. And I try to find the gratitude in that, you know, and I think that for me helps keep me going, but it's hard because like I had big goals this year. Like I saw a post that I wanted, my expectation was going to be $1 million year this year. And I'm not going to achieve that goal this year.
No, you know, that's a good point. I think, you know, gratitude and what we're feeling sometimes can be such different emotions, you know, feeling that sense of gratitude in, you know, difficult times. It's kind of like almost going back and forth between almost like conflicting emotions. And I think that's a hard leap for most of us. But again, what you mentioned about kids and sort of creating those memories, and what I tried to do is I tried to do a lot of video recording of our, just like, you know, kind of like these impromptu real moments that we shared together, and, you know, that would have otherwise not really happened. And, you know, just noticing a lot of things that I don't think I ever noticed, again, you know, about the education, about their, you know, emotional state of mind, and just like my kids' personality, the way we connect to each other, the way they connect to each other. So again, I think sometimes dealing with this sense of feeling gratitude and also experiencing what we're experiencing is also another sense of frustration for people. You know, you feel like, oh, you know, I should feel gratitude for these things, but I'm really getting hit hard by this and this and that. And, you know, I see this amazing life coach myself, and she's given me some really good pointers and saying that, you know, at the time, you just don't really want to force it. If that's what you feel that moment, don't even think about gratitude. I think, you know, that's also becoming such a buzzword that, you know, feel gratitude. I think it's kind of like a macro level versus situational. Like sometimes in a situation, we just need to be pissed, you know?
Well, I think it's worse when you don't honor your feelings, right? So
exactly.
I started seeing, ironically enough, she lived 2 streets over. She just moved, but I started seeing this somatic healer, right? And so she takes like yoga and these like really cool energy work. She kind of combines it all together, right? And it's just awesome. And I started seeing her, I don't know, probably 30 days ago, 45 days ago. And I've known her for a couple of years now. And for me, one of the things that she said that I really appreciated was like, you just, it's okay to just feel your feelings. Like, don't feel guilty about feeling your feelings. Feel your feelings, experience all those feelings, and then move on, right? Like I'm very good at having something happen, holding on to that, and then beating myself up over it for, I don't know, days, weeks, months, years. I'm like, oh, you know, I miss my meditation, like this, especially in the past, like, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, this was me, man, I miss my meditation and my workout, and it's terrible. And I'm such a bad human. And like these really extreme responses. And I didn't say I'm bad a human, but like, oh, how could I do that? And just really beat myself up over it, and then not re-engage in the practice. Right. And so it was this really crazy cycle, and I'm way better about it now. But even still, like I will like feel these feelings. Like yesterday is a great example. I lost my patience with my 3.5-year-old. Like he doesn't know what's up. He's just being a 3-year-old who wants what he wants. Right. And it's my job as his parent to help him get figure out how to communicate that thing, not lose my patience with him because I can't figure out what he wants either. You know? And so I think for me in the past, I would spend weeks feeling guilty and being like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. And now I've really gotten to the point where it's just like, okay, let me feel the emotions of being upset with myself about my behavior. I can't go back and change it, but I can be more mindful of it.
And I'm only human.
And I'm
only human. And, you know, in the middle of a global pandemic where, you know, life is just like upside down, and sometimes you feel like there is no light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. And that affects your performance in all areas of life. And like, if people are saying that it doesn't, they're just flat out either ignorant or blind to it, or just plain like in denial. Because I have people that work for me, and it's 100% affected their performance and their ability to focus and stay focused and bring something to fruition. And you're like, okay, I got to have grace with this, because, you know, you got to have grace with it, because we're all juggling a lot. This is uncharted territory for everyone.
It truly is. It truly is. And again, you know, I think, you know, there is some, you know, sort of universal ways to handle this. And again, you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, individual basis. We all, depending on our experiences and our personalities, you know, we intuitively know best how we can manage this better, right? Yeah. And I think it's sort of, you know, getting maybe help from other people, and sort of like creating this toolbox, right? We always talk about a toolbox. It's just like, you know, what toolbox do I need? And knowing that toolbox is not constant, it's ever changing, you know, as we grow. What I'm sure the toolbox that I needed 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago is much different than what I need right now. It's being open to that change and willing to sort of hear other stories and see, you know, I talk about journaling and I've done it, but I haven't been doing it recently. And I think for me, it was just like, you know, spending time journal. Now that I've heard you that you're doing it and it's helping you, that made me think. I'm like, you know, I'm going to go and actually try it. It might actually resonate with me more now, just because I didn't feel it 3 months ago or even 2 months ago. Doesn't mean that I shouldn't be doing it now. Maybe it will really help me out. So it might be reintroduced as a toolbox again to help me through this.
I find that journaling super therapeutic, especially like after I meditate, and something inevitably always comes up for me when I meditate, like something will pop into my head, whatever it is. And so then I'll just journal on that. Even if it's just, like I said, 2 or 3 minutes, I just get it down out on paper. And I don't think you and I have ever talked about this, but breath work is, I every week I'm
that's a buzz you get more powerful than drinking. Like the mental buzz and rejuvenation that one can get from breath work is pretty amazing.
It's incredible. And every week I'm like, oh, I'm going to find an hour to do it. And of course, inevitably it's really, really hard to find an hour to do it. But I'm like, I went on Gaia yesterday and I'm like, let me go find 20 or 30 minute breath works. Cause I found this guy, Jason from Revelation Breath Work, who I've taken some classes with, and they're awesome.
Right.
Hour and 15 minutes. And I'm like, dude, it is really hard for me to find an hour and 15 minutes and then give myself a little bit of space afterwards.
Yeah.
I can't do breath work for an hour and 15 minutes and then go right into a client call or go right back into working with the kids. It's just not possible. But like that for me has been game changer every time I've done it. And it's something that I definitely need to incorporate more, but like, whew.
It's been powerful. There's actually an app that I want to talk about. It's called the Insight Timer. I don't know if you have that or now. It's I think it's a free app, but you know, you can always upgrade it, but the free one works just as fine. There is, you know, loads of different meditations, different styles. And what I especially like is the music selection. They have all these different music selections, and you know, yoga nidra, which helps you fall asleep, some just really simple and different length. So you can go as short as like 5 to 10 minutes to as long as 2 hours, depending. So we've been actually using that with my kids because a couple of nights I noticed that they had a difficult time going to sleep. So we've been putting it on and they've been, you know, using it and they really love it. Sometimes in the morning when we're having breakfast, we'll put some of these and just kind of really helps the mood. You know, sometimes we need those little kicks, like a little jump start to get us into right frame of mind. So this again, an insight timer, it's really helpful for me. So
I'll have to check that out. We've been
yeah.
using, for the kids, we've been using Smiling Mind,
Hmm.
which is an app. It's out of Australia and everything on it is free. There's nothing paid, because it's a nonprofit, and their whole thing is they want more kids and adults to practice mindfulness. And it's used in a lot of schools in Australia. So it's like they have a whole curriculum. So they'll have a curriculum. It's like 56 lessons for 7 and 9-year-olds. They have like
Awesome.
50.
What was the name again?
Smiling Mind.
Smiling Mind. Okay.
And it's like 3 times a week that we do it as part of our school curriculum. And then the kids also my kids love Andy from Headspace. They're like, let's do Andy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Smiling Minds Insight Timer, two apps that might be helpful.
Yeah. It's when you have the tools though, right? Like I never had any of these tools when I was a kid, and even with my oldest, when he's like losing his mind over my 3.5-year-old taking something from him that's his, you're like, you want to go take a meditation, you want to go run around outside, like what do you need to do to help yourself feel better? And I think that that's all we can do if we take that approach with ourselves. Like, okay, James, what do you need to do to feel better?
Yeah. And I think also just, reminding ourselves that, we can't really change things even for our kids. This is the world we're living in. We can sort of guide them and just be there for them so they can better navigate this, just, like ourselves. And ultimately, they need to develop their own tools to deal with what's happening. Yeah. And I think to some degree, again, and we talked about this, they need to understand what's happening. And they're actually very, I don't know about you, if you notice, my girls, especially the younger one, is very aware of what's happening, and they listen. And even though, we don't really listen to news and any of that at home, at least when they're around, just, we don't want it to. Right now there's just so much. They intuitively know, and they feel it, and they express things, and just by, what the things that they comment. And, if they ask things, I'll try to answer them without, sugarcoating it too much, but, just like, age appropriate, but also letting their minds and their brains to kind of like planting that seed that, things are difficult, and, they should be ready for difficult decisions and situations, and sort of, learning how to adapt. I mean, that's how we evolve as a species, right? Yeah. It's just, adapting to this. And again, as parents, and we're probably the generation that's just uber protective of our kids right now, right? I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and we were just like, it's the way we grew up. And I mean, we have our share of problems, as Gen Xers, but I mean, it's that balance, right? Yeah. Again, and I guess, again, that balance could be different for different people. So, we will make it. We will. It will be a journey, and I think there's going to be a lot of great things that comes out of this. But we have to go through it. No other way around.
Agreed. Yeah, my 7-year-old's so funny. So there's like this building that they painted. It's got the vote sign. So I was trying to explain what's going on to him, because we didn't really do anything from a curriculum perspective about like, oh, the president, yada, 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 like the presidential election and all that sort of stuff. I was just like, it's too many questions. I can't handle it. But we had this whole discussion about it. And because my husband works for the government, my son has, for some reason, come to the conclusion that Donald Trump is my husband's boss. Even though it's like,
well, government, right.
Thousands of people. He's like, so Donald Trump is your boss? And you're like, not exactly, but okay. We'll in some ways, yes.
Right.
In simplest of terms, yes. But if
it's interesting to see their, how their minds work, right?
He's like, so do you talk to him every day, Dad? No. But it's just, it's an interesting thing to see them have that conversation, right? And when I grew up, it was like not something you didn't talk about who you voted for, and you didn't talk about all that sort of stuff. That was not like, you didn't have these.
It's a very private, and we've talked about this, and I think that's the other challenge that people are navigating right now, and that in itself. I'm sure our next talk is probably going to be around that. Actually, it's election day.
It is going to be on election day, so we'll totally have to talk about it.
And I think that's a sensitive subject, but I think there's a way to really have good things come out of it. Either way,
agree.
wherever
I
one stands.
Totally rock that subject, but we could totally rock that subject. But my favorite part about the whole thing, between the coronavirus and the presidential election. So my 7-year-old will be sitting at the dinner table and we talk about going to do something or whatever. And he'll be like, I have to tell you something, but I don't want to say it. And I'm like, you can tell me anything you want to tell me. You don't have to keep it a secret. You know, like I'm here for you, good, bad, and different. I can support you. Right. And he's like, we can do that when the coronavirus is over, right? And it's just like this like that thou shall not be named. It's like Voldemort, you know? and it's just, everybody deals with it different, right? And if that's his approach to it, and we've never been like, don't say the coronavirus, right? Like, it's not like Voldemort or anything like that, but it's interesting to watch how they process.
It really is.
So,
well, Jamie, always great talking to you. And I love how, you know, things sort of go in different directions and ultimately, you know, it sort of comes back together. So again, you know, this is our aim, just to have a conversation, and we will meet again next week.
Yeah.
And do this again. And again, our topic will probably be a little bit more towards, you know, election and how to sort of handle that from a space of, even though it sounds a little funny, understanding, acceptance, and just like humanity.
Yeah.
And really trying to do that, and really trying to be in that space, because, you know, the alternative is just not good.
No.
No, it just lingers on. So that will be food for thought, right?
Yep.
Let's see what happens.
It's gonna be fun.
All right.
Awesome.
We'll see you next week.